Good.
All right, first things first, we have power tongue jack. On here, we have a little LED light, so at night we can see what's going on if we're hitching up, unhitching, whatever it is. To the right of that, we have retract and extend. Now, if something happens, the switch breaks, we don't have power, whatever it is, there's this rubber plug on top. And if you are hanging out up here, don't put your hand on there. There's a wicked black mark, doesn't come off very easily, but you'll pop that off, and
17 minutes on this.
we have a crank handle, right? So there is a manual override for that. If you lose this, it's a 3/4 inch socket bit.
SIM card.
Power drill, a ratchet, whatever.
I'll have to use my phone.
I have no SIM.
Behind there, we have two 20-pound propane tanks, both of which are full. Joining them is our regulator and our diverter. On the back side of this, there's a little green, we'll call it a finger. And to whichever tank that points would be the tank that we're pulling from. So right now we're on this tank. Let's say we drain this one empty, open this one up, right on over to the other side. Now there is a sight glass back here, near impossible to see, but clear is full. As it creeps to red means it's empty. They do make again, a plethora of accessories for the whole camper, but for propane, there's a couple different gauges. There's inline ones that can go right in between that have an analog gauge on them. There's digital versions, there's magnetic ones, or there's old school where you wake up in the morning, you come outside, and you will get your frost line. That lets you know where you're at too. That's the one I go at. So, when it comes time to refill and or replace the propane, obviously we'll shut it off, undo it like a barbecue, loosen this big wing nut, and then just lift it up and off. That's all.
Is there an off on that?
There is not. So it's just leave it to whichever side,
So
and then
if you
turn
take
your
one off,
tank.
put it the other side, and
Yes,
flip
exactly right.
Got
Yep.
that?
Mm-hmm.
I like keep them closed when you're not
Exactly.
using them.
Yep.
it. What do they do? For what?
So everything in the camper can run off propane and or battery except air conditioner, microwave, and outlets. Propane specifically is going to be your stove, oven, heat, and water heater.
Okay.
That's it. So on average, I'll try to get about 7 to 8 trips a season, right? I have a gas-only water heater. It's tanked. You have tankless. So yours is using less energy than mine. If I go through one of these a season, it's a lot. That's family
wow.
of 4. So
Okay.
it sips it. We cook all the time. The biggest consumer of propane or largest consumer is going to be the heat system. So I don't really use the heat a whole lot. My camper's a little bit smaller with 4 of us in it. Body heat offsets a lot. But you know, you can go through it much quicker. But
What does the air conditioning use?
110. So when we're plugged in.
It's electric.
Yep. If you find yourselves going through a lot more propane, you can put bigger tanks, 30-pounders if you wanted to. You can bring an extra with you. Most campgrounds will have propane fill stations, you know, or it's accessible somewhere close. But it's not something that you really go through a whole lot.
Campgrounds have hooked up to gas.
No. So say you have like a seasonal site, right? You say someplace you like, you want to keep it there, and you're going to do either winter camping or colder weather stuff. You can. I don't know if it's through the campground. It's through a propane company, and you can rent like a 100-pound cylinder, or you can buy one, and they'll come refill it for you. So if you are on one site that you're keeping it there for a while, you could do a 100-pound tank, or you could bring another 40-pounder and just you can change the pigtail. These are called pigtails. You can take one of these off and put a longer one on, again, so we could reach, and we just leave it pointed to that one side, and you're good. And then you'll have 20 as a backup, let's say. So there are again, a ton of different options to go with. There is a propane tank cover. This just slides right over the top and cleans it up. Little access panel up here. So these little nubs, we'll just loosen these up. We do not have to take them off all the way. And we just tip them forward. So I get this loosened up. And you can access the tops of the tanks that way. When you tighten these down, just gently. They don't need to be tight. It's just so it needs to grab those little nubs there. If you go real tight, it makes it near impossible to get them unscrewed. So
When that goes on, does it bolt?
it does not. It slips right on. All the wind is being blocked by the truck, and then
Okay.
you have pressure against the propane.
Okay.
If you were really worried, there's holes at the bottom. You can do like a small bungee underneath or something like that. I leave mine without. Slides right over. I've been fine for 30 years. So behind there, we have a Deep Cycle Marine RV battery. It's Interstate SRM 24, brand new. Yeah, that will stay charged a couple different ways. So one, via the 7-pin plug. So when we're plugged into the truck and the truck's on, the alternator from the truck sends power back and charges this just like it charges the battery in the truck itself. Second is when we're plugged into any form of power, be it 110 volt shore power or a generator or a regular 15 amp outlet. So you don't really have to worry about them, they stay charged.
It just stays charged. You don't have to
Exactly.
flip switches or nothing.
Nope, exactly. It's all auto.
Okay.
There is, so if you find yourselves dry camping more often than not, you're going off grid, you can slide the battery over and add a second one. Off one battery, say roughly 6 to 8 hours of lights and everything like that. Things that run on the battery are going to be your lights, any little fans, fridge, igniters for things like the heater and the water heater, your fresh water pump. So again, all of our necessities will work off of these two items except the air conditioner, microwave, and outlets.
So when this battery's on,
Yep.
do you have a kill switch? So like if you walk outside and you left the battery on, it's going to stay on?
Correct.
Okay,
Yep.
so that's
Yeah,
not
there's
really a
no
feature.
battery disconnect on this particular model. You can add one. You know, if you shut the lights off, there's small things that'll draw, things
Right.
like the propane detector, but it takes, you know, weeks to months for it to drain.
But when you're hardwired in, you're plugged in, it is charging. And what do you get a couple years out of the battery?
Say about 5, depending
get
on
that long?
condition.
Okay.
Yeah, depending on, you know, usages.
Okay.
You know, it's good to use the battery in the sense where, you know, we're unplugged, we got the lights on, you know, literally use it.
So it's good to drain it a little bit.
Thank you. That's exactly, yes. Yeah, and you can get those just about anywhere. It's not a hard to find battery. It's a, you know, deep
Okay.
cycle marine RV, so boat or RV battery. You can switch to lithium. You know, if you're off grid, you can, like I said, add a second one, or you can do just one larger one. Multitude of ways. If we added a second of the same version, that's 6 to 8. We could roughly double it, right? So 10, 12, somewhere around there, a little bit more, 16 hours out of the batteries. Again, depending on what we have on, things like that. But yeah, I have one on mine. You know, it's perfect. You stop on the side of the road, kids need the bathroom, you want to have lunch, whatever it is. You have plenty of time. Even if you want to tailgate, plenty of time with this stuff. You know, you have a full night of usage, we'll say. Now, say you're someplace where you were using the battery, all of a sudden lights go out, right? Battery went dead. Just start the tow vehicle, right? It will slowly charge that, but not just that. It's also going to keep all your 12 volt items on. So it'll power the 12 volt as well as slowly charge that battery. So you're never completely in the dark, so to speak.
Does it only pull from the tow vehicle if the vehicle's on? Should you unplug
So it depends on the tow vehicle. So it will, technically yes. Think of like the radio in the truck, right? So you shut the truck off, as long as you don't open the driver door, it'll stay on for 5 or 10 minutes, right? Something like that. You can leave the radio on. It should be the same type of setup with the 7-pin. So it'll usually allow, you know, to pull from the battery for a certain amount of time. Not all vehicles have that disconnect though, so some it'll just stay on all the time.
So you recommend unplugging that when you're...
For like overnight, if you're
Yeah.
if you're, you know, in a hotel or wherever, your friend's house overnight and it's just hooked up, it's a good idea. It's not going to drain both batteries because again, you still have this battery on board and then you have a big one in the truck too. So it would take a real significant amount of time. 9 years I've been doing this here, I've only heard of it happening once. So, and a lot of people just leave it plugged in. So it's not a commonplace. It could happen. Chances of it actually happening close to nil, but there is always a possibility.
Do you think in the winter time and it's in their driveway, you should always keep it plugged in?
So wintertime, I take my battery off and I'll bring it into the garage. I'll put it on the trickle charge. Make sure if you do that, make sure that you have a trickle charge that's monitored, right? So it's not just a charger. So once the battery's full, it stops feeding it power so it doesn't overcharge or drain the battery out again because it can boil it. Battery tender. There's a couple of other good ones that are out there. It's gray. I can't think of the name now. It'll come to me in a bit. But yeah, I think I have a battery charger and Milco is the other company. And I do my boat battery, camper battery. I'll pull them out during the winter months. You know, unless I'm gonna go to Florida or something like that. Then
So
we'll just
you
leave
pull it out,
Yep.
and you can still plug it in, and
Yep.
you'll be fine.
Exactly. Just make
So
sure
that's what you
weeds
do.
don't
Yeah.
touch metal. That's all.
Right.
I put cut a little piece of hose and I just stick it right over the
Right.
weed, and you don't have to worry.
It's the same as the
Yeah, yeah. It's okay if it's on there all year. Some people get worried about freezing and things like that. During springtime, when spring comes around, what I'll do before I put it on the camper, there's 2 caps on the battery. I'll pop them and check the battery acid level. So there's the top of the battery is green, so you want that level to be kind of right where the green line is. It'll be easy to see. If it's low and you don't have battery acid, fine, distilled water. Just top it off with that. It does it just fine. That just ensures that everything's good. Because again, if we leave it charging for too long and it's not monitoring, it's just charging, it can boil that, in turn cause things to evaporate, so we kind of lose our level and in turn lose time that we have for the battery. Over here, just as I'm seeing on this side, you can actually catch it from right over here. It'll be a better angle. Right here on this red wire, there's an inline fuse. Right, that is for your tongue jack. So this is a 30 amp fuse. What it is if we overextend the jack or retract it and keep holding the battery while it's fully up, it can cause that to blow. So just so you know where that is. All the other fuses are in what we call the converter panel or breaker box inside. But that's the only one that's
Are
locked
there
in there.
spares for that or no?
There are not. So you can pick them up anywhere. There's standard ATO blade fuse, gas station, campground, auto parts store, Walmart, Amazon, wherever it is, readily accessible. 30 amp and 15s are your main fuses. You'll probably have a couple 25s as well. Question?